Greetings, everyone. I hope you're fine. I hope you are doing well. Who is going to be the president of ANC after 2027 conference? Probably you have heard this phrase multiple times since 1994 or prior to 1994. Who is going to be the next president of ANC? Who is going to be the next president of ANC? Even before 1999, people were like, who is going to be the next president of ANC? And even before 2009, people were like, who is going to be the next president of ANC? Around 2017, people were like, who is going to be the next president of ANC? Right now is 2024, and we have people who are like, who is going to be the next president of ANC? When it comes to mainstream media, we have to understand that it's all about business. But when it comes to black people, they feel like there's a gap that the next president should fill. They feel like there's a gap that the next president should deal with that particular gap. So the gap that I'm talking about the needs of the people. Because right now, as we speak, people are unemployed. People are homeless. In other words, poverty is severe in South Africa. And now they feel like the next president can do something. That is why we have many people who keep on voting ANC, even if we feel like ANC is not doing anything. But there are many people who keep on voting for ANC. Why? Because they feel like the next president is gonna fill the gap. But before I go into details about the problems that we are facing and probably a solution that we might use, I just want to talk about these potential leaders, these guys or these gentlemen who have a potential of leading the country or the potential of becoming the president of ANC or the president of the country. I just want to talk about Paul Mashatile. There are people who are like, Paul Mashatile is the way to go because he is a deputy president. In other words, according to the principles of ANC, if you are a deputy president, there are many chances that you might become like the next president of ANC and next president of the country. But at the same time, there are those people who are like Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of African National Congress, cannot be underestimated as well. But at the same time, we have some people who are like even Mr. Panyaza Lusufi cannot be underestimated. So many people feel like Panyaza Lusufi can relate with them, can relate with the needs of the people, can relate with what people are going through based on how he reacts, based on how he deals with what people are going through, what black people are going through. Probably he can become a best candidate. In other words, there are many people who are interested in seeing Panyaza Lusufi becoming the next president. But here is the thing. The problem is one. Because the moment these people occupy a position of becoming a president, then everything changes. In other words, their language changes. Everything changes. Their song changes. In other words, everything changes. That is why it's too difficult to trust these presidents. That is why now people are like programmed to say who is going to be the next president. Why? Because it started a long time ago. People are hoping that this one will make changes. 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 But so far, we can tell that people are still living in poverty. Black people are homeless. Black people are suffering. Black people are poor. This is a fact. This is the truth. But now, here is another thing that we have to focus on. Because there are people who are like, 2027 is not that far. But In my context, I feel like 2027 is far to expect someone to start solving your problems in 2027. I just want to say we can start solving the problems that we are facing in our communities. Because you have to understand that in places like Hammanskraal, people have been complaining with water. In Hammanskraal, in Alex, people have been complaining about poor service delivery, housing, and all those things. People have been complaining about all these things. And we know for a fact that people have been complaining about the spaza shops in our locations. Now children are dying as a result. Some are getting sick as a result. There's no regulation. But we don't see any action. That is why I'm like, the moment these people occupy a position of becoming a president, everything changes. And I believe, because I can also be biased for a second, I believe that Panyaza Lusufi is a right person based on his language right now, current language right now, how he interacts with the people, how he speaks about the needs of the people. In other words, he can relate with those who are poor. But here is the thing. Can he be trusted? And I believe that Panyaza Lusufi can only make history by collaborating with the likes of economic freedom fighters. And they can also bring MK party. In other words, if they can collaborate and say, right now, we want to deliver the needs of the people. We want to solve the problems of the people. I believe that Panyaza Lusufi can be the first president of South Africa to make history by delivering or giving hope to the people of South Africa. I believe so. But the problem is these people cannot be fully trusted. Why? Because there's a tendency that the moment you occupy a position to become a president, the song changes. That is why I'm like, right now as we speak, Black people should start building. Don't depend entirely on African National Congress, or don't depend entirely upon government and upon politics. Why? Because the reason why in other countries people are creative and etc. is because these people, even if the government is corrupt, but they try by all means to lean upon themselves. In other words, they lean upon themselves to make sure that they don't sleep with hunger. I'm not saying there's no poverty. But here's the thing. It's because they do not have some privileges such as grants and all those things. So if you don't have those privileges, sometimes it becomes an advantage because they push you so that you can lean upon yourself instead of leaning upon the government. So this is what African people or Black people here in South Africa should do right now as we speak. You have to take advantage of your communities, of your townships, and you have to take over in those communities, in those townships, and etc. Why? Because that's your only hope. And again, you have the numbers. You can start solving the problems in your communities, the problems in your townships. You have to come together and form a progressive business forum. And it should not be motivated by politicians. It should not be motivated by all these people. In other words, you have to come together and say, yes, maybe we have our own differences. The other one is in MK, the other one is ANC, the other one is maybe UDM, and etc. and etc. But you must say, right now, we should not be divided by politics. In other words, we have to come together and work. We should not be divided by religion. We should not be divided by all these other things, but we have to come together and say we have to start building. We have to start like being creative. In other words, we have to start like using the education system that is suitable for us. We have to start encouraging our children to take courses that will solve our problems or that are related to business. This is a strategy that can work to say, you know what, we start a business forum because we are excluded already to this other economy. So in other words, we have to make sure that we solve our problems in our townships, we solve our problems in our communities, we become creative, we develop skill sets and all those things in order to solve our problems. In other words, you have to bring people from your community and say, you know what, let's come. What is your idea? What is your idea? How can we solve this problem, and etc. And you will be surprised that the moment you bring your ideas together, then everything will start changing. But you have to make sure that you run away from leaning on politics. You should not be divided by religion. You should not be divided by anything, because I know for a fact that it's easy to divide a black man. It's easy to divide black people. It's easy. But right now, we have to start making sure it becomes difficult for us to be divided. So that is why we have to like bring people in our communities to say, we have these problems. How do we solve these problems in a business way, not in a political way to say we have to expect funding, we have to be funded, we have to start a non-profit organization and etc. Right now, this is the time whereby we have to say, how do we solve this problem, or how are we solving these problems business way? In other words, if we have a problem of water, there's no water in our township, maybe a squatter camp, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because you have people who are knowledgeable, who are skilled, and these people are waiting for opportunities. So if the government doesn't give them opportunities, in other words, you as the community, you have to invest upon those people. You have to invest upon those people by making sure that you establish a business forum. Not just a business forum, but a progressive one. A business forum that is like, that does not include politics and all these other things. I know for a fact that we cannot do everything without being disturbed by politics and all those things. But I believe that people can try. So this is the time whereby people should come together and say, we have to solve our problems business way. In other words, if you can do so, I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. You will start realizing now there are changes, because I don't think it's wise to wait for 2027. If we are like complaining about the education system, why can't we build schools that will use the curriculum that we want? It's possible without leaning on government, because you have to understand that the institutions that you see today, the big churches that you see in townships and even in the suburbs today were built by people who were organized to say, you know what, let's build these institutions for a certain purpose. So black people can also come together and say, you know what, right now we can see that these institutions are not working for us. Church institutions and all these other institutions are not benefiting us. But even though we have other people who agree with these institutions, but let's come together this time to establish something that will solve our problems. We want something that will help us to solve our problems. Business way. In other words, you must have a business mentality so that at the end of the day, we can know that if you go to this location, this is what you will get. If you go to this location, this is what you will get. Then we start trading amongst each other. And again, we have to set up policies in our township because we have to take over our townships. Like for an example, if someone wants to build a mall in our township, in other words, it has to be fair. It has to be fair. We have to know how the community is going to benefit, because most of these investors, mall investors and etc., they always run away with a profit. They always run away with everything. So at the end of the day, our people are not benefiting. So right now, as we speak, we must come up with a system that will solve our problems. Because right now we have a system that is fighting against black people. We have a system here in South Africa that is putting black people on a corner. They can't breathe. They can't breathe. So that is why we want a system that will free them from depending upon government. Because if you depend upon government all the time, they will always come up with systems that will sabotage you. They will always come up with a system of like, be patient. We'll see this in 2027. We'll see this in 2029. That is why right now we have people who have been like looking for houses since forever, and they are still patient. They're like, maybe if this president comes, I will get my house. I will get a job. I will do this. I will get this. I will achieve this, and etc. and etc. But the time is ticking. The time is ticking. You cannot expect someone to come in 2027 or 2029 and solve your problems. In other words, if we have a president who is progressive, a president who is like, you know what, I can see the needs of my people. My people are landless. My people don't have 1, 2, 3. I will cover all these things. That whole thing should be a bonus. In other words, having that kind of a president should be a bonus. In other words, we have to start depending upon ourselves. Don't depend upon that grant, because grant is just a bribe. It's just a bribe. So I'm not saying it's not necessary, but I'm saying you have to think beyond that. In other words, you have to think beyond like earning a certain amount of money from government every month, because at the end of the day, you are not satisfied. So we should not like, yes, we have to think about who is going to be the next president and etc., because politics affects us. But right now, we have to start building institutions, building businesses, solving our problems. Because in our country, in South Africa, we have people who can solve a lot of problems. They can solve water crisis. They can solve energy crisis. They can solve all these things. But as long as we don't come together and speak business, then it's a problem.